So, okay, Walter,
Hello.
willkommen, welcome. So, now we'll start your story. We have plenty of questions here.
I'm really delighted now today, this evening, to have you all here. And it took really some time for me to agree with that evening. And yes, I'm really excited now. And I just want to introduce myself. I'm Walter Kromig, and I live now in the northern German seaport of Wismar. And I've been working as a freelance translator since 1997. And before I was an in-house translator in the shipyard. So I was born in a village in Saxony, in the Erzgebirge mountain, situated in East Germany. Most of my school period I spent in Dresden, the capital of Saxony, and I went to school 12 years. The last 4 years in a secondary high school, the gymnasium, in Dresden. The last 4 years of the secondary high school included vocational training. So this was a course that we were invited to have vocational training. 3 weeks a month we were at school, and 1 week at vocational training. In my case, I participated in vocational training for an electrical engineer. Electrical engineering, and the profession I learned was a electrical mechanic. I never worked in this profession, but the vocational training turned out to be very useful for my job, for my translator's job, and helped me later to understand the technology or methods and so on for my translations in my job as a shipyard translator. In former East Germany, at schools, Russian language was a compulsory subject starting from the 5th class. English lessons were offered only from the 7th class, and it was not compulsory. It should be mentioned here that most students, in their deep hearts, East German students, did not want to learn Russian. They rejected it internally. They resisted. But they had to learn the language, and generally, as a result, the majority of East German young people, having left school, did not know Russian language well. But some did, and it was very useful for them in their future vocational life. So at secondary high school, we were asked to enroll for study. So we were asked to go to university, to high schools. And I applied at Leipzig University, then it was the Karl Marx University in Leipzig. I applied to become an interpreter translator for Russian and English. I had to pass an entrance examination 1 year before the study started. The exact name of the study was Applied and Theoretical Linguistics, and was offered at the high reputation University of Leipzig, which was founded in the medieval period. The reason why I wanted to become a translator was to apply my knowledge of 2 languages, Russian and English, abroad, not knowing at that time what the profession and the job would involve for me and what this all would mean for me. I did not feel fit for other professions, so I tried to apply for the study at Leipzig University. After 3 years of study, the university administration cared for us to provide us jobs, because this was planning economy in communist East Germany. And they were in touch with the industry, and university produced staff for the industry. So I was actually instructed to go to the East German seaside, to the town of Wismar, where I still live now, in particular to see the translator staff at a big shipbuilding company. the East German shipbuilding at that time had
Yeah, Walter, maybe I just stop you here, because here it would be really good if we could start sharing the pictures which Walter provided from his archive. Just a moment.
free to show them. And
Yeah, wait a minute that I get it sorted. Yeah. Okay, can you see my screen?
yes.
Yeah, just a moment, I will make it nice. Yeah, so now that's the boat, I think. We'll come back, but now we are talking about Wismar, right?
Okay, I told you I live in Wismar, and the shipbuilding, the shipyard is in Wismar. This is a seaport in the Baltic, and this is part of the UNESCO World Heritage. Has been part of the World Heritage since 2000.
Yeah.
I think.
So you were basically, the university said, okay, you have to go to Wismar, that's what you have to do.
Yes, we were instructed even to go to the shipyard, and with me one colleague, and he did not want to go in the end, but I signed a contract 1 year before with the yard to start as a translator then in 1973.
Yeah. Did you know anything about the boats or ship?
No, actually I did not.
Mm-hmm. So it was just go and do.
Think from scratch.
Yeah.
I must say East German shipbuilding at that time had a focus on building merchant ships for the Soviet Union, because East Germany was part of the Soviet hemisphere, and in economic terms the official name was the Council for Mutual Economic Assistance, or Comecon. And as a Comecon country, East Germany, the GDR, German Democratic Republic, made contracts with the Soviet Union for shipbuilding. But it was not only in Wismar, it was also in other parts of East Germany. We just saw the map, and on the map we could see some places which were connected. There were still some other shipyards and many other places, suppliers, the supply for shipbuilding, they're all mentioned there.
Yeah.
And is in this is the old East Germany, part of the whole Germany, of course, and in the northern part and the western part is Wismar, number 9, if you can find the number.
Can you see I'm circling it right now?
As a graduate, when you arrive at your new company that provided you with a job, you had the obligation to stay there for 3 years. After that, we were free to leave the company and look for a new job if you wanted to do so. The job profile included translation of basic design documentation, of detailed design documentation from German into Russian, and later also into English, but also any documents needed to be translated from Russian into German. Interpreting of nearly all technical presentations of equipment on the ships and appliances, and also during technical conferences. We had to take part in ship trials at sea and on shore.
So Walter, I will stop you here. So that was basically your office.
My office?
Yeah.
Yes, we had a building there. This was a shipyard, on the shipyard premises, a building where the Soviet supervisors were accommodated, and we were 12 translators and interpreters, comprising the translator staff of the shipyard. Mm-hmm. And it was a very large territory, the premises of the shipyard. Mm-hmm. Let me still tell you about the business trips to the Soviet Union, especially to the cities of Moscow and Leningrad, which is now St. Petersburg. In these cities were the main industrial administrations and the planning administration and the headquarters of the shipping companies of the Soviet Union. That means they were our clients who wanted to buy the ships. And you had to interpret on the occasion of many official standard events, such as launching of a ship, and we can see it on other pictures. We had a slipway. It was quite a standard way of bringing construction ships on the slipway. And the ship, the ship's hull was actually launched into the water. And we can see here a christening, sponsoring ceremony. And this was a Greek owner. So I had to translate in English, into English and into German. We can see the godmother, the sponsor, the christening the ship's hull with a bottle of champagne.
Yeah. But Walter, where was that?
That was in Wismar as well, on the slipway.
Mm-hmm. And
the Greeks brought along a Greek bishop who was actually christening the vessel and blessing it.
Mm-hmm.
So we had to interpret on the occasion of many official standard events, as I told you. These were launching ceremonies, ship naming ceremonies, flag changing ceremonies. A flag changing ceremony was was a takeover of the ship by the client and naming the ship while the ship was afloat. Well, so once the ships were in operation, such ship would be granted 1 year of warranty period, and during the warranty period, the ships could come back to Wismar and carry out guarantee work, and so this was also part of our work.
Yeah.
So I think yes.
So maybe now, for example, if we go quickly back, so you said basically you needed to go to work on this boat, for example.
Yes, it was everyday practice that we were invited. There was a phone call to our superior, to the senior translator, sent me, or to the secretary, and send me please a translator on board, or to some special equipment. We need her or we need him in order to translate for the presentations of technical equipment.
Yeah. My question was before to you, was this, when was that? We are talking about which year, plus minus here?
This was in the 80s.
In the 80s. Was
Yes.
it safe? Was it safe to climb on this boat?
Yes, of course, because there were a lot of people working on the ship, and they had to provide safe staircases, and there were special people responsible for labor safety, and they had to provide safe equipment and safe access to and from the ships. This was a very important point, because this was very important for the health of the people.
Yeah, I see some employees here. Were these employees all from, well, Germany, from Eastern Germany, or were these also employees from other countries, or workers?
No, workers were mainly East German and Northern German people, or from the German Democratic Republic. Yes, we can say it was mainly East German staff.
Yeah. So, okay. Wait.
This has, of course, changed now, because there are now Polish people, Lithuanian workers, and Croatian workers were invited to come to the shipyard, and they work now on the ships.
So I already showed this picture. That's, for example, an example of translation, right?
This was a brochure showing a refrigerating vessel. This ship was able to carry a huge amounts of fuel to take to the Atlantic, and on the Atlantic, and they took over frozen ships. They had very big cargo holds. which were refrigerated. That means they had a very efficient and powerful refrigerating station. Their refrigerating equipment, the trials and the testing of which took many, many days and weeks sometimes, and we had to be there day and night.
Were you on that kind of boat when you went somewhere?
We built about 20 ships, 20 vessels of this specialized type, and we were doing that. There were 9 ships per year that were built, and we had to be constantly, actually, every day there.
Yeah. Interesting is also the name of the boat, you know. I asked you before, because what was it? Alma, I can't read Russian. What does it say, the name?
It's Almazen Iberik, which is the coast of Diamond, or Diamond Coast.
Mm-hmm.
They had a big series of these coasts that were still Izumrudny, or what else? So a lot of coasts of precious stones.
Yeah, precious stones. Interesting. And that was inside of.
Yes, this you can see it on the top on the left. This is the wheelhouse where the captain was, or the chief officer, and the helmsman who operated the rudder, and other nautical personnel. Then in the middle you can see a view to the deck and to the deck houses. You can see the masts and the derricks and the winches. And on the left side, of the right side top, you can see fenders. They would have been lowered on the ship's side in order not to damage the ship's hull. You can see the big cargo, the hatch, that had to be closed when the ship had been refrigerated, not to heat and not to warm up, to allow temperatures to increase inside.
Let's
you can see on the bottom a lifeboat and the interior.
Okay, we go to next one. This is of you were saying about celebrations, and
this is a naming ceremony for a Swedish owner. The man speaking there was the director, the CEO of the company, of the shipbuilding company, and the lady there is the godmother, the sponsor. She had to christen the ship.
So, was it always a woman who was kind of?
Yes, it's always a woman. Is the shipbuilding tradition that only women are allowed to christen the ships.
Okay, who is allowed to select the name?
Superstition about this, but they stick to that tradition as far as I know.
Okay, good. Time is running. I lost my presentation. Just a moment.
What else?
What else? Let's go here. Here we can see Walter. I'm circling here on the right-hand side. It looks very official with lots of important people with suitcases. Where's that?
These are, there's no money in the suitcases. There, I think it were some papers. I don't know what they had in it, but definitely no money and no drinks or something like that.
But is this still in Germany? I mean,
they were Swedish owners, and this was on the slipway, and in a few minutes' time they would launch the hull into the water, and it was quite standard and usual that both sides would give some speeches, and in this special case, it is the director for new designs.
Okay. What does this mean? Bester des Monats.
For me, everybody got sometimes, maybe once a year or twice a year, such a a certificate for good work, and yes,
Yeah.
the best of the month. And
What was the reward?
I think the reward was sometimes nothing, but very good bonuses, annual bonuses in the beginning of the year. This was quite okay.
Yeah.
This was more or less a political obligation to involve people into the socialist emulation, competition.
Yeah. What did you need to do to become the best employee of the month?
Maybe I had to do a lot of overtime, but this was such a certificate was more or less the result of this. I and also my colleague, we didn't think about this before to get such a thing. It's quite funny to find them now in my records, and I have many of them. So I just wanted to give an example of how was the the work in the so-called collective in the team life.
Yeah. So now what's that? This is the logotype, right?
Yes, this is a small flag that represents three letters, TW, and the official name of the shipyard was Matthias Thesenwerft. Matthias Thesen. This was a communist who was imprisoned by the Nazis, and he died in a concentration camp. And he was from North Germany, so they dedicated this name. They named the yard after him. And it's an interesting thing. The MTW. This is the midship section, which is an important part of a ship's hull.
Was this typical for the company?
On the bottom, you can see the rounded corners, and this represents the midship section, which is the biggest section in the middle of the ship.
Was it typical to honor in Eastern Germany to honor the victims who lost their lives?
Yes, yes, it was nearly every. Not all, but many of the companies, the socialist companies, the people's owned companies had names of resistance. People who were active in the resistance against the Nazis.
What's that all about? It's a huge boat for ship.
They had several slipways, and it was always for the people who prepared the launching ceremony. They were always trembling and looking at skies and the weather forecast, because they had a kind of soap on slipway, and the soap should not be too hard and not too soft. And they always tried to do their best to get the vessel, to launch the vessel into the water.
How high is this boat?
I think it was 15 meters or so, but it was only the hull. There are different types now. The Mukran, this was a ferry, the railway ferry boat, and the other on the left side, there are the refrigerators, the refrigerating vessels, and including the wheelhouse and the mast, it could easily be 25 or 30 meters.
Okay. So you already explained, this is the godmother, the Greek, Pope came
to... where the bottle is bursting, this is a bulbous bow, and the bulbous bow was an element of the hull in order to make the speed of the vessels more efficient.
Okay.
This as well is a kind of naming ceremony or launching ceremony, and this was the production director, and between the production director and myself, there was the party secretary of the shipyard.
Yeah. So we are still in Eastern Germany.
Yes, in Eastern Germany and in Bismarck.
Bismarck, okay. So, what's that?
This is inside one of the refrigerating ships. The port of registry was Kaliningrad, and the name of the refrigerating vessel was Ostrov. I can't even read it now. I cannot remember this.
Yeah. So okay, now we are now moving close to to the Soviet Union, and now maybe the big answer that we are waiting for is actually when we start. Did you travel a lot to this part of the world, to former Soviet Union, and why, and how did it work, and did you get paid better? Maybe give us a bit of background how it works.
We had to go to the Soviet Union very often because, as I told you, the administration of the shipping companies, they were based in Leningrad and also in Moscow. And to prepare the ship construction, we had to go and to be in touch, in contact with the client, because the client had some wishes how to perform the construction of the vessel, and into the last detail, and covering all the fields of technology. So you had to go there for sometimes 1 week or 2 weeks, and you had to stay there. And the business traveling was mostly to the Soviet Union was a little bit of a challenge, of course.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I stopped to share a bit because there was another guest joining. But for example, you said, did you get some special money when you went abroad on a business trip?
I think we changed the money in the Soviet Union, and we also got some money from the shipyard. It was 11 rubles per day. This was quite good money, and we could then we didn't need to pay the hotel, but we could buy what we wanted. Actually, we could eat out, and we had to do so.
What is the story with taking vodka, butter, and sausages to Russia? I mean, to Soviet Union. That's the question. What was that all about, and why?
I have to make this, except that the butter was available in the Soviet Union. Yes, traveling to the Soviet Union was always a little bit of a challenge. And this was because you never know beforehand what the hotel was like, and you had to stay for the night. Also, we had to take our typewriters along, the mechanical typewriters, and a Russian one with the Cyrillic characters and also with Latin characters, because we had to translate protocols or other documents in the evening in the hotel room. Yes, and also it was sometimes difficult to get, or it was actually not possible to get a supper in the hotel. It would have taken too long time. So
what's too long time?
We brought, yes, we were business travelers, and we had to work in the evening. We had no time to go to the restaurant and to wait 1 hour or more for eating, for your food.
Yeah.
So we brought along our sausages sometimes. We brought fish tins, not butter. Butter was available. And during the Gorbachev era, we were also we were taking the vodka and the cognac to the Soviet Union.
Why did the German person take vodka to the Soviet Union?
Yes, this was because of Gorbachev. Gorbachev was the new party general secretary in the Soviet Union, and he wanted to reduce alcoholism, and he restricted, just a moment, and he restricted the selling of alcoholics, and you had to have special papers, and you had also to queue up. This was impossible for us to get this. And so we were not drinking, but we were, in the evening, we were meeting sometimes, and we had a glass or 2 glasses of vodka or cognac. And that was the reason why we took this to the Soviet Union. And also we had to take along our portable water heaters and pots, and to boil immersion heaters and the metal pot to boil the water for tea and or coffee. There was no chance to get a quick breakfast or just a coffee or tea in a Soviet hotel at that time. We had to wait, and time was very precious, and we did not have the time. Mm. What else? So Gorbachev here tried to reduce alcoholism. This was the reason why alcohol and vodka was not so easily available.
But, you know, was it legal for you to take it?
Yes.
What if you would sell it to other people? That would be illegal, probably.
No, it was legal, but I had 1 bottle of cognac, and when I went out of the plane on the premises of the Leningrad airport, the bottle slipped out of my hands and crashed on the floor and was lost.
Oh no. Okay. So quickly here, I'm sharing the picture again. Here we see you. Can you tell us who is sitting here and why the person is sleeping?
This is one of the Soviet political functionaries. He was responsible for the crews, and he was sitting there with the director of the shipyard and with the production director of the shipyard. And they were discussing questions. I cannot remember which ones. It was not a production conversation, I can remember, but this was a usual thing, and also with vodka, usually. Mm. This was not shown here, but...
Did you need to drink whilst you were translating?
Also needed to drink, and wow. We drank a lot at that time, all of us.
Yeah. Yes. Now you shared with me these 3 flyers.
Yes, these 3 flyers were they are designs from the international fishing industry exhibition that was in Leningrad in 1980, and one of the big ships of the polar type, the refrigerating vessels, was an object of the exhibition. So the whole crew of the German shipbuilders, including the translators, went from Wismar by ship, by sea to Leningrad. And then we arrived there and we made our preparations for the exhibition, and we were instructed to be on the deck, and ordinary people were allowed to come to see our ships. To some places, not all places were allowed to be seen, but we had to be in touch with the people and to translate or answer their questions. Okay. And this is very interesting because yes, people came to us and wanted just to talk with us, and they also shared their experience and what happened during the wartime when Germany, when the Nazi Germany had the blockade of Leningrad and people suffered. So elderly people came to us and told us about this, and this was sometimes very, very touching to hear their stories.
Okay. We have about 9 minutes left.
Exhibition, and this was a product for the Soviet fishing industry.
Mm-hmm.
we were there. And we had special uniforms, as you can see on other pictures. And these were no Navy, no military uniforms. They were just uniforms of the East German, of the GDR shipping company.
Yeah. So.
And we had to wear them during the exhibition period.
Yeah, so you were part of the event, basically.
Part of the whole ship's crew. This is the, in Leningrad, the passenger ship area, the passenger terminal. And it was at that time allocated for the ships which took part in the international exhibition.
So,
so we left then. Flag changing ceremony was then conducted in Leningrad, and the German crew left and flew back to East Berlin, and the Soviet crew took over.
Yeah, I remember, because we had lots of conversation before this event. What happened? I don't know where it was. Was it in Leningrad where you met this Korean crew?
Okay, this was a different situation.
It was a very good one. Yeah.
This was very funny. And this was a ship owned by a South Korean shipping company. It was a cargo freight ship. And this ship, the shipping company wanted to make the ship larger. And so a small team of specialists was sent to Leningrad while this South Korean ship was in a Soviet port, because we were not allowed to go to some capitalist countries, to some Western countries. So we used the possibility to visit the vessel in Leningrad. And I was together with a former party secretary, and the party secretary was then the delegation, the senior delegation member. And we were then invited to go for lunch, and in the offices, in the mess room, there was a television set, and for them it was standard to see porno films. And this was the first time I saw a porno film together with the party secretary, who always was responsible for good moral of the staff. And he asked me then afterwards not to speak about this in the shipyard when we came back to Wismar. So this
today we have presentation about that. But that's a beautiful example how life actually was.
Because I witnessed the first porno film in my life on board of the unmoral, foreign, capitalist South Korean territory, in the presence of the Communist Party secretary.
That sounds amazing. Okay, precious souvenirs from USSR. What's about that?
Okay, that's I prepared a lot more, but it's really difficult to make a choice. And
we can continue stories when we have this conversation afterwards.
I think you're now showing a picture because, as an East German citizen, not only me but all the others had the impression we were very lucky to buy some goods in the Soviet Union that were not available in East Germany. For example, glasses or vases or normal utensils for the house and for domestic use.
Yeah, you were also mentioning that, for example, I wrote down a few things from our conversations, which was about the Beatles and the books.
Yes, this was very interesting as well, because East Germany, the German Democratic Republic, produced a lot of very good books on a very high level, and they exported everything to the West, but also to the East, among them the Soviet Union. And we, being East German citizens, being in Moscow or Leningrad, went to the international bookshops and bought our own East German books and brought them back. We took them back to East Germany because we were able to buy them in the Soviet Union, and we were very happy about it.
Yeah. Okay.
Background.
Yeah, background. What else? Yeah, before we now go to our questions for Walter, I had I had other questions as well, but one question which was interesting for me. Every time when in the media they show the fall of Berlin, okay, the fall of Berlin Wall, they are mentioning music. And I asked you if okay, if this David Hasselhoff song, I've been looking for a freedom, was really this great hit, which some people, you know, say it was. But you shared with me other things about other musicians who actually kind of marked this period. You remember?
I think it was Nena. I think I should not forget to mention that I lived in Wismar near the West German border, and this allowed me to. This brought me to the positive. Therefore, it was possible to receive West German television and West German radio. And I, of course, was familiar with all these songs. And one of the very important songs was Nena. I think 99 Luftballons, and also Wind of Change, I think, was another song which is very much, which was very much associated with the fall of the Berlin Wall.
Yeah. Another thing which I think it's really important, which I asked you, you know, just before these changes, maybe a few years before, did you feel it? Did you know that something will change?
No, I didn't know, and nobody knew about this, but we were feeling that something is going to happen. And I annually spent my holidays with my relatives in Poland, which was a former, before World War II, it was Germany. So I had some relatives there, and I always used to go there. And in Poland, they told us something will happen in autumn. And really, it happened.
Yeah. So, and after the change, did your job change?
The job changed a little bit, yes. The shipyard was one of the nationally owned, so state-supported companies, and starting with the currency union on the 1st of July 1990, everything changed because the economic basis had changed radically, and the companies had to be restructured. They had to let off people, and yes, there were really drastic changes. But as far as it concerns me, I continued my work actually in the shipyard until 1996. I was then dismissed, and after that I became a freelance translator.
I muted myself.
Thank you.
I've got loads of questions, but I'll just pick out a couple. So that certificate that you showed us, I found it interesting that they referred to you as Kollege, Komik, and not Genosse.
That's right. But can you show some other certificates where I was dubbed Genosse?
Okay.
In East Germany, Genosse definitely meant that you are a member of the Communist Party.
Ah.
And, the Russian word would have been Tavarish, but the Russians can address anybody with Tavarish and not with that political touch. But sometimes I was also invited as Genosse, but they did not know that. I think it was a Soviet crew. They invited us for dinner, and I still have this Genosse, but I was never a member of the Communist Party.
And just a quick follow-up question, also relating to that certificate. I noticed it said, you know, vorbildliche sozialistische Arbeit and verbunden mit gesellschaftlicher Arbeit. So what does that mean? I mean, the sozialistische Arbeit was probably just your job as a translator.
You're right, and gesellschaftliche Arbeit was, for example, I think we had one photograph I translated not within my job, but I translated within the scheme of the Deutsch-Sowjetische Freundschaft. It was a German-Soviet friendship society.
Okay.
In the end, I think it was a very good institution because it brought together ordinary people, ordinary crew members, and also people from the shipyard or from the town. And they were invited, and there were some speeches, but not only official speeches, and they had coffee together, even or the vodka, but this was a very good institution, I think. This was less political, I should say. It was more this brought the people together.
Yeah.
This was an example for gesellschaftliche Arbeit.
Okay, okay.
But gesellschaftliche Arbeit, this could have been also, you took part in the cleaning of something,
Okay.
park or something like this.
Okay. Jadwiga,
Unpaid work.
Okay.
Jadwiga, are you happy, or do you have another one?
I'll just have a final one. I've got a load of
Okay.
others. So if we have more time.
No, just go. It's fine.
The last thing, was seasickness ever a problem?
Not for me.
Okay.
But it was a problem when I did not, we used to go, we have a very narrow waterway from outside into the Wismar harbor. And the big ships could not enter when they were laden with cargo and so on. We had to go out. And it took us about, with the small barges or with a tugboat, for 2 hours. And the people, the crew smoked a lot, and you did not have you did not have enough fresh air.
Yeah.
And when this happened, it was very bad for me and for other people as well. And they would have taken you out to fresh air, although the tugboat would have rolled and moved to all sides. This was very difficult. But they would have held you and taken your head out of the fresh air, and then it was better. But on the vessel, usually people, when the ship was rolling, we had bad weather, they did not go to the mess room, and we had, it was much more relaxed, not so much people queuing up for eating. I have an insect here, so. But actually it was no problem, and still today I like this rolling and functions.
Okay, thank you, Jadwiga.
Right, thank you.
Yeah, now we go to Natasha Higman. You can unmute. Okay.
Yeah, so my question is actually about your languages. So you said you learned Russian at school, and presumably your work at the shipyard originally was Russian-German translation. When did you start learning English? Because your English is very good as well. Did that start in school, or was that a lot later? And did you do any ship translations into German English or Russian English? Did you do any of that work at the shipyard?
I started learning English from the 7th class.
Okay.
But this was not compulsory. This was your own decision whether you wanted to take part in English lessons. This was from the 7th class on, yes.
How old were you in the 7th class?
In the 7th class, it would have been, I think, 12 or so. Yes, I think 12 years.
And did you do any German English translations for the shipyard as well, or was that only German Russian?
We had to do both directions, definitely.
So all 3 languages?
Yes.
Because Walter, you told me you would be fired if you wouldn't do it, right?
To say we did not have very good dictionaries. We had one Western dictionary, the Bluey shipbuilding dictionary. It was a Western edition. But anything else, we had a library, and you could take from the library some specialized magazines, shipbuilding magazines, and you had to discover and to find out your vocabulary by yourself. And also, yes, learning by doing, being in touch with the crews, the international crews, and they would have given you the necessary vocabulary. And but generally, it was a very good thing to have context to all the design people, to all the workers, to the sub-suppliers, to anybody. If you did not understand it, you could contact them, and they would have even time to go with you, especially when you were on the vessel, to go to that place, to go to that equipment and show it to you and explain it to you. This is a very valuable and very, very useful thing to have.
Natasha, are you happy with the answer? All good? Yeah. So now we go to Jane.
Thank you. I mean, my question is actually kind of fairly similar to what Walter's just been talking about, because I just imagine Walter turning up and he's got a degree in applied linguistics, but he probably knows nothing about boats at all. And suddenly, you know, I've never been a translator without the internet. So, and did you have a glossary? Did you literally just walk around when you didn't know words and talk to people, or did you have glossaries that you worked with in the three languages?
We had several various generations of translators, and during the first month, I was in the company of a senior translator, and I had to take down everything this was my decision, yes, to take down and to write down and to learn from him. And we had very good Russian dictionaries, but no English. But of course, many technical expressions were not in the dictionaries, and they were a part of the vocabulary of the senior people, the senior translators. They would have given us this.
Yeah, because it is quite important, isn't it? And if you got something wrong when you're discussing the design with somebody who's buying the boat, I mean, you know, your role was actually incredibly important.
We had to prepare, and we had to ask constantly, and because also the issues would change. Today it would be a wrong fuse in the whole electrical system of the refrigerating plant. It was very important, or a wrong, yes, and then the other part, a mechanical part in the engine, in the main engine, or in the auxiliary diesel generators. Next time it was something with the radio system not working, or maybe some flaw that was made from the manufacturers. They had to go into the matter and to discuss it sometimes for hours.
Yeah, so basically you had to first of all learn how boats were made, then you had to learn how to translate that vocabulary.
Yes, I could see the plans, I could see the drawings, and you were learning on the job.
Yes, yeah. You certainly were. Thank you, Walter. That's really fascinating.
You, Jane. Now we have now. Wait
Sounds,
a minute.
but it was not, and yes.
Just a moment. Now we have Natasha, Mome, and then Laila, and then we collect again. Natasha, Mome, it's your turn. You just have to unmute yourself. Okay, maybe you can hear.
Okay. Thank you very much first, Walter, because I know you now a couple of years. I don't know how many, but it's still new, or parts of this. But my question was, have you ever been in the Soviet Union during your studies? Because, well, I missed that part. I didn't know.
No, I was not allowed. I was not allowed. I still don't know why. Still now, I don't know why. I tried to find out, but university, they supported me to go there, but I think it was the Stasi in the end preventing this. Because this was exactly the time when the so-called Grundvertrag was signed with West Germany, and this was a kind of relaxation of international relations. But inside the country, it got tougher. And you know, I'm Roman Catholic. I went to the Studentengemeinde, and they knew everything. I had two uncles. They were Catholic priests in Poland, so they knew everything. And I had relatives in West Germany, and they did not want me to see there for 1 year in the Soviet Union. That's all. I went to the Soviet Union for 8 weeks, several times, for a fortnight or so, but they did not allow me to stay there 1 year.
Okay.
Just said goodbye to one of our colleagues. Natasha, do you have another question?
Yes, another one, just one. Was your main work translating or interpreting? Because you have, or do you have to do both?
We had to do both, and it was nearly half 50-50.
Okay, thank you. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Thank you, Natasha. Now we have Laila, and then we have Christina, who put her question into the chat, and then Astrid, and then we go again. Okay.
Hi,
Laila?
Walter.
Yeah.
It's not so much a question as I didn't realize we shared this in common. So in the 1990s, I translated from Russian into English for a maritime legal company, and it was ship's logs books from Russian, written in hand on the high seas, like this. And I wish I'd known you then, because like you, there were no dictionaries. There was nothing. I remember going to the East End of London and pulling out books on maritime law and just trying to learn anything I could about ships. And we even had, as a collective, we translated the Russian maritime code. We split it up and translated it. And if I'd known you in that time, my life would have been so much easier.
That's very interesting. So your one of your languages is Russian? I didn't know.
Yes. Yeah, and it was around the same time, because I went to Russia in 1984. We went to Minsk for 3 months as students. So that was in the Andropov era. Yes, and it's very strange to think about what's happening now in Belarusia as well. It was such a different time.
Maybe it popped up to me when I was at university. We were not allowed for our work to use Western American or British newspapers or books. But in the Soviet Union, they have an international, for international affairs, a magazine, Novaya Vremya, in New Times. And they have obviously very good translators, and the German high school teachers, university teachers, used these texts for our studies. So we did not. I was just I had the possibility in Poland to read Western English Western newspapers. University was not. And the Morning Star from the British Communist Party.
It's also unusual that maybe it wasn't unusual in the DDR, because here you only ever translate into your mother tongue. So it's highly unusual to translate into a foreign language, but you were translating into a foreign language, 2 foreign languages, because you did German to English and German to Russian, is that right?
We had to. If I had refused, and then if I would have reasoned that it's impossible to translate into not mine.
Yeah.
Foreign, they would have fired me, or I don't know what they would have done.
So that's quite impressive that you did that. Scary.
Now, before we, Lila, do you have something else? So it's
no, that's all. I was just struck by the certificates as well. It's a bit like, you know how even in McDonald's you get Star Employee of the Month. So it was a bit like that, wasn't it? You were the Star Employee of the Month.
There's a little like that.
That's it.
That's it.
Yeah. Now.
So we also considered this as very funny. You know, we had a very natural distance, internal distance to that. And we were also smiling about it, but we had it and we took it and I kept it.
Yeah. Okay, now we have a question. It's Christina and then it's Astrid, as far as I could see. Christina, would you like to ask this alone or shall I read it? Christina? Okay, maybe I'll read it. So Christina, she writes, I have two questions. First, until 1996, you continued to work as a translator. Just a moment. You continued working as a translator for the state company. Did they continue to work with Russia on some contracts? And then she goes, has the nature of your work changed since the fall of the wall? That's that. And then the second one is, how did it feel when you transitioned to the world of freelance? Did it feel difficult? And, oh, my baby is sleeping next door. Therefore she writes, okay. Mm-hmm.
I think immediately when the West German currency was introduced into East Germany, so immediately the commercial context stopped because the Soviet Union was not able to raise money for paying ships, and we speak about millions of dollars, it was in dollars. And the Soviet Union was not able. And the ships under construction, there were 2 ships under construction, not finished yet. They were in the harbor basin for 2 years. And after 2 years, they could be sold, I think, for reduced price to Cyprus or to some other countries. And so it was very difficult for the Soviet Union. And later on in the 19th, the Russian government wanted to buy some rescue ships for the for the Polar Sea, and I think they won a contract for 2 of these ships, and also for 2 tankers for Lube oil, oil tankers for Lube oil. But other clients, among other clients, were after unification of Germany, China, and West Germany. So Germany, German components.
So how
of course, when I was a freelancer, everything changed. But I found a good company in Hamburg, and they provided me with good work.
Mm-hmm. Because you still work as a freelancer, right?
Not having any contacts and any basis, so it was difficult to start then as a freelancer. But for me, it was not difficult because I had a client who was interested in my languages and also in my skills, technical translator.
Are you still working as a translator? You are, aren't you?
Yes, I am. But Corona period created also kind of pause.
Yeah. Okay.
Starting again.
Yeah. Astrid, it's your turn.
All right. I've got 2 questions, if I may, and I'm going to ask them the other way around because one relates to Christina's a little bit. When the wall came down, I was in the West, so I only saw that from that perspective, and I'd be really interested in finding out a little bit more about how you experienced the whole period from the other side. Could you maybe elaborate a little bit on that? And then I'll ask a second one after.
Was that the question to me?
Yeah.
I think it's a little technically, it's difficult to understand you.
Okay.
So whether I got it right.
Do you want me to ask again?
Yeah, please.
Okay, I'll speak right into my microphone. Maybe that helps a little bit. Can you hear me now?
Okay, I think it's a little better.
All right. Okay. So I'd be interested in finding out how you actually experienced the fall of the wall and that time from the eastern side, because I experienced it from the western side, and I only know my perspective, obviously.
Yeah,
I can find out a little bit more.
I can answer this question. I was in 1987. I was the first time I was allowed to go to West Germany, and then in every year again. And in the beginning of the year, in February of 1989, I was in West Germany to visit my aunt then. So when the wall came down on the 9th of November, I was here in Wismar, and during the next day, people started to go to the west. And there were queues of cars, and it was non-stop. And for me, there was no necessity to go to the west because I had been there. But it was very interesting. We had a big meeting at that time. They started to have big meetings with responsible persons from the government, from the local government, from the town government. And I was in such a meeting that started at 7:30 in the evening. And I was there before it started, and there came some people from outside and said, we saw in West German, on West German television that the wall comes down, is about to come down. And I thought, did I really understand him? Understand? Then I went home. It was about 10 o'clock in the evening. I switched on the television, and they showed what they had to show. This Schabowski, the party official in East Germany, who announced, obviously, from now on, you are allowed, our people, our citizens are allowed to go to the west and to cross the border. And then I had a small bottle of cognac, and I was opening it, and I stayed on the TV set until 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah. We have a question quickly here. Did you have close family in the West, and where?
No, I did not have close family in the West. It was just an aunt, an uncle, and a lot of cousins, but even with not much touch. I always expected my aunt to send parcels for Easter and for Christmas, and she did that, and I was very grateful for her, and I visited her. I sent her also some small gifts, but they were actually not very close.
Okay, maybe my second question, if I may, and that relates a little bit more about to the translation of ship-related stuff. So you said you had no idea about boats or ships or shipbuilding beforehand, but were you interested in technical things beforehand, or are you now interested in ships? How has that relationship with shipbuilding changed?
The secondary high school in Dresden, the gymnasium, they had several branches. They had a branch of natural sciences and languages, but I was in the natural sciences. And we had, in parallel to the school program, from the 9th to the 12th class, vocational training, technical training. So we were practicing welding, metal treatment, everything we had to pass and to go through. And I did not work in that profession, but I brought a lot, I accepted and I grasped a lot of technical understanding in that. So I'm not a technician, but I think there was a lot of technical information and knowledge that came to me in this way.
A question that I wrote down on the chat, which I thought could open an interesting, possibly quite an extremely serious debate, really, about what Walter Kromik sort of made of the Russian people. Did they help? Were they not so helpful? Were they like actors, or were they, what sort of persona did they inhabit, I guess?
Yes, I understand. I can answer this question. I think the Soviet partners, they were, I always felt that we had a very good relationship with them. The specialists from our shipyard were always considered to be reliable people, competent people, and this was the way also we were treated. There may have been some exceptions, but mostly this was on a very good human level, and even, I should say, it was a level of friendship sometimes. And I can remember that it's a very good experience I had with them. Of course, that also much depended on the level what they were, whether they are senior level or lower levels, where we had all the levels we were in contact with. But generally, I think it was a good relationship. And they accepted us, and there were also some people, they were very hard negotiators, of course. And we always had the impression that they feared to be punished in some way if they would have made a mistake in the contact with us. And sometimes, it was not only sometimes, it was about much money. If they admitted that they had made the fault and the mistake and the equipment was unfunctional, so they tried to negotiate and to do everything to reject it. And because it was connected with some financial losses. But in the end, these things were very solved on a higher level, and there was also always a way to settle all the questions.
So, are you still friends with them?
Is that your question?
I was actually going to ask the same thing as Romana. Did you stay in touch with them socially? To some of their staff?
Yes, sometimes, yes.
Oh, it's very interesting, I must say.
Sometimes we were invited to come. That depended on the level. But ordinary seamen, they would have been, we had good contacts with them.
Yeah, nice. Okay. I think that's it. Walter, how do you feel? Now you were here interrogated with all these questions. Is it okay?
If you have more questions, feel free to ask them.
Anyone? No, so far so good.
I would just ask, I suppose I would just ask, did you feel safe at the time with that milling about? Did you feel like a total safety, like you were in safe hands?
Yes, I have to say yes. I felt totally safe, and I like to walk through Leningrad and Moscow during nighttime, and I was admiring the architecture of the beginning of the 20th century, the end of 19th century. And I like to walk through the streets, and I felt completely safe, which changed then after the collapse of the Soviet Union.
Okay. Final sentence, Walter. Will you say something in Russian?
Хорошо. Я очень благодарен, что мне была предоставлена возможность представиться в этом кругу переводчиков, которые базируются в основном в Англии, кроме Наташи, она сидит в Германии в своем офисе. Я очень благодарен и хотел поблагодарить вас за тот интерес, который вы сегодня проявили в моем отношении. Спасибо вам. Спокойной ночи.